You and Axl don't speak, do you?
We just haven't spoke, you know.
Axl Rose takes it all. He holds the deeds to the anthems the world screams and handpicks who shares his oxygen on stage. To him, a band is a tool. Musicians are interchangeable cogs. If a part grinds or a man talks back, Rose tosses them into the scrap heap and bolts on a replacement. No middle ground, only the chain of command. Loyalty is the only currency that clears. One wrong move, and he redlines your file. Axl squeezes the trigger and walks away from the smoke. You wake up to a blank marquee. Your name is gone. Zero trace. Forever. The ledgers of the 80s listed them as kings, split between the airwaves and the glossy covers. Labels shrink wrapped the racket and tagged it for the counter. But the janitors in a Chicago lobby, sweeping up jagged glass in December 1987, recorded a different truth. Jon Bon Jovi operated by the grid. He pumped out filtered, radio-ready rock. To Axl, John was polished chrome on a car with a seized engine. The suits demanded Rose become a predictable product, but his guts spat out the assembly line. Fans saw stars. Rose saw a direct threat to his marrow. In that Chicago hotel, a bystander made a fatal move. He compared Axl's face to his rivals. Rose skipped the dialogue. He buried a fist in the man's jaw, turning the lobby into a meat grinder. That wasn't a tantrum, it was physical brand protection. The next night, opening for Alice Cooper, Axl hammered the nail. He leaned into the mic and vomited a foul slur at Bon Jovi's name in front of thousands. Then, the fire went underground for decades. But in this business, grudges don't evaporate, they harden. 2006. Bon Jovi takes a public swing. He mocks Rose as a freak show for his years of silence behind bolted doors. One thing burned him. Axl's stock stayed high even with the factory floor empty. Axl didn't file a report. He simply cut the power. Phone dead. Gates locked. In Rose's ledger, loyalty ends at the margins. There is zero room for enemies on the list. Bon Jovi remains a polished cog in the machine. Rose is the wrench that broke it. Names became line items in a new ledger the moment Scott Weiland and Axl's old guard forged Velvet Revolver. The ink on the contract suggested brotherhood, but the studio walls heard a different sentence. Your new singer is a fraud picking meat off my leftovers. Rose didn't see a supergroup. He saw vultures circling his scrap pile. In 2006, Axl slammed the eject button. His camp leaked a surgical report of a late-night visit from Slash. Rose claimed his old lead guitarist came crawling for a truce, spitting bile on his new partners along the way. Slash reportedly branded Weiland a fraud, Duff McKagan spineless, and Matt Sorum a traitor. It was a precision strike aimed at the band's foundation. Weiland didn't choke. He fired back with an open letter, calling Rose a Botox-injected wig and a king with an empty court. He told Axl to hit the gym and accused him of hijacking other men's notes and lyrics. Weiland pointed at the 10 years of dead air coming from Rose's camp, while Velvet Revolver burned through miles on the road, tour after tour. Weiland cranked the volume to the red line, but in Axl's world, that was just white noise. The fallout was absolute. Axl erased Scott from the list of active threats. Soon after, Weiland stood alone. No band, no contracts, zero balance on the paycheck. In Rose's territory, there are no coincidences. Weiland was a blown fuse. Axl simply tossed it into the bin. Empty, forever. They signed for a partnership and bought a war. On the ledger, it looked like two frontmen clawing for the spotlight. The file opens at the Cathouse. A drunk Izzy Stradlin kicked Vince Neil's wife in the gut and felt the shove back. Witnesses in the makeup chair saw Axl's face bleach white the second the news hit his ear. Stagehands winding cables at the 1989 MTV Awards watched the finale in the wings. Vince Neil buried a fist in the guitarist's jaw. Axl Rose squeezed the trigger, and he did it for the cameras. He hunted Vince through the corridors until security slammed the doors between them. Rose handed down the sentence: nails, knives, or fists. Those were the terms of engagement. He shouted them in Kerrang! For the world to hear. Vince Neil took the bet and named the ground Tower Records on the Sunset Strip. He broadcast the coordinates live on MTV. But Axl Rose did not cross the threshold. The line went dead. Zero show. Rose pivoted. In Get in the Ring, he spat the names of Bob Guccione Jr. and Mick Wall. He ordered them to show up and bleed. He promised to break their teeth. When Guccione took the deal and offered the purse to charity, Rose vanished into the static. The roadies noticed the pattern. He sets the meeting and ghosts at 0 hour. Rose only bites when he has a microphone to hide behind. His bravery lives on magnetic tape. The fans saw a show. The guards at the gate saw a reputation turn to ash. Rose's rage was a filter. Keep the loyal, dump the rest. The contract looked like a win, but the fine print demanded a pound of flesh. In his world, old grudges don't die, they calcify. The timing hit like a lead pipe. Names evaporated from the marquees. The industry watched the rows in the ledger go blank. Rose erased the entries. No noise, no comeback, forever. Rose paid for his fury with decades of solitary behind iron gates and torched millions of dollars in the balance sheets. In this racket, loyalty is absolute zero. Betrayal is the only currency that doesn't bounce. Drop a lead if these dossiers carry weight. It's the green light to keep the shovels moving and unearth the skeletons rotting in the crawl spaces. Forge your signature on the button or scan the code. That's the high octane that keeps this engine grinding. Now, back to the impact zone. This was the union of the old guard and the new wave. Axl Rose was a believer. He sported a Nirvana cap and bled praise for Nevermind into every microphone. He wanted to hitch his wagon to the new sound and offered Nirvana a slot on the stadium tour with Metallica. But Kurt Cobain saw a bloated corporate hearse. To Kurt, Guns N' Roses was 80s trash, a distended system built on sexism and excess. The lyrics of One in a Million were jagged glass in his throat. Cobain cut a trench in the dirt. The guy is a sexist, a racist, and a homophobe. You can't stand on his side and ours at the same time. That public rejection was a hollow point bullet to Axl's ego. Stagehands dragging cables at the 1992 VMAs saw the lights go out in the room. Courtney Love threw a needle as Axl walked by with Stephanie Seymour. "Axl, will you be the godfather to our child?" Rose didn't crack a smile. He stepped into Kurt's air and jammed a finger toward his face. He handed down the sentence, "Shut your bitch up, or I'll leave you on the asphalt." Cobain didn't trade punches. He pivoted to his wife and delivered a masterclass in psychological warfare. "Shut up!" The room erupted. The laughter hit Axl like a physical blow. Rose lost the war of wits and launched a campaign of total attrition. He turned his concerts into a tribunal to spit venom. He branded the pair as junkies from the stage. He told the crowd that if their daughter was born a freak, both parents belonged in a cage. Axl cranked the volume to the red line, but the tectonic plates of the industry had already shifted. After that night, Nirvana never crossed the threshold of Axl's studio. Cobain stayed on the far side of the velvet rope. One man was erased from the ledger. The other was left standing in an empty hall. Zero contact. Forever. Their bond turned to ash. Forget the creative differences in the press kits. In 1991, the roadies saw a war for the steering wheel. Rose built a monument of orchestras and sprawling ballads. He turned the studio into a bunker. The band sat in the dark for hours waiting for a ghost. Slash wanted the gutter, rock that hits like a brick to the teeth. Manager Alan Niven watched Axl tighten the noose on the money, turning brothers into session hands. 1991. The split locked. Slash signed to play for Michael Jackson. To Axl, it was a jagged knife in the spine. Rose carried the physical scars of childhood abuse. He bought every charge against Jackson. Slash was warned the move would gut Axl. He looked at the check anyway. This treason had a price tag. While Eddie Van Halen hauled in $1 million for Beat It, Slash traded his loyalty for a big screen TV. That transaction turned years of sweat into scrap metal. Axl didn't scream. He simply closed the ledger. Slash's name vanished for 20 years. He didn't touch a fret until a new contract cleared the debt. Zero contact. Case closed. The industry took the payout. Rose kept the receipts. He was the grit that snapped the crankshaft. In his world, loyalty is a permanent weld, or it's scrap metal. No refunds. Rose redlined the names and dead-bolted the doors. Isolation is just the tax for owning the clock. The machine ground everyone to dust. One man, empty seats, zero noise. He squeezed the trigger and never looked back. Case closed.